importance of visiting the Holy Land was because it's the place where Jesus walked and talked and died and rose. And for me, the incarnation has always been a mystery that's fascinated me more and more, because in appreciating the grandeur of God and the incredible statement that God became one of us in a particular time and in a particular place. And going to the Holy Land was a time to, if you will, touch up close and personal the incarnation, that the Word was made flesh here. I think before all else, what pilgrimage means to me personally is it's a metaphor for life. We would like to believe that our life is not just happenstance, that we begin in a place and we're going somewhere. And we have people that join us on that journey. So I think the pilgrimage is a way of understanding life. The holiness of a pilgrimage is found in the day-to-day interaction among the pilgrims themselves, together, and of course, with the pilgrims we interact with God. My spiritual growth came about because I had to set aside my daily occupations. I left the normal routine, and I had the great luxury of allowing God to expand my horizon spiritually. And I think I felt God spoke in the context of the wideness of that horizon. Preparation that Tekton offered the pilgrims, material that we could reflect upon, an initial meeting several weeks before our departure, and even having representatives here in Indianapolis at the airport when we left and when we returned. I think these were details that allowed us to sort of cast aside any great anxieties and just go with the flow. We weren't trying to get away from it all. We were actually going someplace, and we were going, as eventually up to Jerusalem, as the Lord invited his disciples to do on his final pilgrimage to the Holy City. We were, in a certain extent, a microcosm of the diversity and the unity of the Archdiocese. There were young and there were old. We spanned it with different cultures, different races, certainly different economic groups. But a pilgrimage is a great leveler, because we eat the same food, we stay in the same place, we ride the same bus. I can understand a little better why the Second Vatican Council, when searching for an image to describe the church, used the image of a pilgrimage, talking of a pilgrim people. And I suppose doing what we did together helps us understand the church a little better. There was ample time in the late afternoon, early evening to be together, but also to be by ourselves and to kind of sample what I had seen and what I had heard. And it may have been the particular place we were visiting, it may have been a comment of one of the pilgrims. I kept a little journal as I went along, and that too is something that I review from time to time. Gethsemane was a great moment for me. And I'm not exactly sure why, other than I think as a priest, you visit a lot of Gethsemanes. You visit a lot of people that are facing their own mortality, their own death. Sometimes they're feeling very alone and abandoned. And for me, the opportunity to walk there, first down the Mount of Olives with my fellow pilgrims, and then to celebrate the Eucharist there, was a tremendously moving experience. I think early on a Friday morning, celebrating the Eucharist at Golgotha, at the portion of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that encloses the rock on which Jesus was crucified. None of the pilgrims were unmoved by the circumstances in which their fellow Christians live in the Middle East. I think they were surprised, and I have to say that I believe that even if they watched the news, they were still surprised, because the actual unfiltered reality that's not, been touched up by one or several propaganda machines was really stark. I mean, things that Americans would take for granted, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, the right to title to property, to land, to access to water. These were all, none of that was given, and many times denied to people simply because they were Palestinian Christians. And I found that my fellow pilgrims were quite shocked by that. One thing that affected me in our contact, not only with our guides, but with other Christians and non-Christian Palestinians, to be honest, was the amount of humor and the sort of almost self-irony that they had in describing their situations, because they weren't out to demonize anybody. They were rather just said, this is the way we live, and we want to stay here, and we accept that this is the way it is, even though it's not just or it's not right. But we love this land, and we've been here for centuries, and we've welcomed people like you for centuries, and they continue to do it. And I guess I was surprised and grateful for that sort of welcome and the humor. You could say they were imitating Jesus. Jesus wouldn't pass the evil on. He died rather than pass the evil on that was done to him. The growth that takes place after the pilgrimage is notable, and I think it's real. A couple of weeks ago, I had met with the pilgrims, and we hadn't seen each other since for really 2 months. And people began to share what had happened, and I think the most frequently heard comment was, I never have heard the Gospels the way I hear them now, because I realized I was there, and I can picture it. And it's almost like the Gospel becomes three-dimensional, and it takes on color and texture that it didn't have before.